So now we go to the part 2. Part 2, we will talk about the basic elements of the changes of the demand and the consequence, okay? Okay, so the key things is you have to understand what is the background, how to draw the background, and how to show the changes, okay? So we have a very quick revision about that. So for the background, we know that there are only equilibrium and disequilibrium. And also, that is only excess demand and excess supply. So let's understand the diagram of them. Okay, so let's go here. Equilibrium, simple. We just found out the interception point, that's a P1 and Q1, that is the equilibrium. Then we can find the market price is P1, that is quantity transacted is Q1. Total revenue, simple, P1, Q1, okay? That means this area. Very simple, equilibrium. Then go to the excess demand. Excess demand is too many users, too many consumers. They cannot buy it, even they want to. So that means the price is too cheap. Too cheap, that means we try to draw the price below the equilibrium. That is P1. And at the same time, this is a Q1 and Q2. And then that's it. But what is the market price? Market demand, that means actual price. That is P1. Then QD, that means the point that the Q touch the demand curve, and we find that is this point. So Q2 is quantity demand, and quantity supply is the point that the quantity touch the supply. That's this point. So it should be Q1. Okay, and quantity transacted is always the smaller one between these two quantity. So it should be Q1. So this is Q1, and excess demand is the distance between them. So it should be Q1, Q2. And the total revenue is the market price times the quantity transacted, the actual price and actual quantity. So it should be P1, Q1. That means this area. Okay, last one. We go to excess supply. Similarly, too many products can be sold by the supplier. So that means the price is set so too high, above the equilibrium. And then we have our Q1 and Q2 here. We find the surplus here. Okay, so let's check what is the price. Here we found the price is P1 is the market price, the real actual price, and the QD is always the price that the quantity touch the demand curve, the demand curve. This one, okay, its interception point is Q1. So we get Q1 for QD. So QS touch the supply curve quantity. So it's a Q2. So Q2. Quantity transacts always the smaller one. So it's Q1. Excess, oh, it's not excess demand. It should be excess supply. Sorry. Okay, it should be excess supply. It should be Q1, Q2. The distance between Q1, Q2. And the total revenue, always the market price times the quantity transacted. That means P1, Q1. The area here, P1, Q1. Okay, so that's all for the background. And after that, sometimes we can find that the question asks about the labor market. Okay, that's a different thinking, because in the labor market, who need the labor? The labor is the firm need the labor, but who become the labor is the household. Okay, that means the employees. So the factory workers. So for example, is that there is a factory worker who need the factory worker is the owner. Owner is the firm, but who will become the workers? They are the general people. That means the household. Okay, but for the product market, most likely we are talking about the product market. We are really talking about goods or services. So that is the demand for the product is the household, and the supply of them is the producer. That means the firm. Okay. Okay, in this part we're talking about the changes. Okay, so there's only 3 types of changes: a change in price, change in demand, and supply. So we go to one by one. For the change in price, it's very simple. In the questions, there's only something changes about the price. How is it show that? If more difficult, it makes okay, the company giving special discounts, or they try to increase the fares. Okay, this kind of things means that the price increase or the price decreasing here. Okay, so Another thing is about the government policy. We will learn that in the government intervention. But actually, let you know if it's talk about that as minimum wage, the policy, and actually that's talking about the wages. That means the price of the workers. Okay, so actually minimum, that means at least it has that wages. That means a lower limit. Okay, so actually we will increase the price actually. So or that's a second maximum price of the goods, and also that will be drop the price because the goods cannot set to go through the limit. So in this case, if there is changes like this in the diagram, we only have a change of the price. For example, it's P1 to P2, Q1 to Q2. Okay, it affects the quantitative demand. Second, we talk about the demand. If there changes the demand, most likely that's or several things is very special. The first thing is that if there is two goods in the questions, for example, the market is talking about the private housing, but if they mentioned about the changes about the public housing, so we have to figure out what is the relationship between them. So if that related to demands, that means they in the scenario is thinking about the users of the goods. So if competitive advantage, competitive demand, it may be talk about the substitutes. Okay, substitutes, for example, we are talking about the car in blue and the car in green. So if the car in blue have a price increase, that means people will not. They will try to buy less about the blue car. That means they will go to buy the green car. So that is about demand increase in green car. So let's say if that is a strong demand. So let's think about this: the car and the gasoline. So they use together. So if people love to buy more car, so the demand for gasoline should be increased together because they need more gasoline to use. The last thing is the divide demand. That means the resources, because we need the final product, so we need the resources. So think about that. If the final product is the car, we need more cars. We found that people like it, but how about the resources for the making cars? That's steel. So need more cars, that means we need more steel to make the cars. So the demand of the steel increase. That's about the demand. Second, if there's only one goods, but there's a change in income. So we have to figure out that actually when we become richer, we may buy more or buy less. Depends on what kind of goods. If normal goods, that means that some goods that we like it, they're more luxuries. For example, taxi. That is normal good. When we become richer, I will prefer to take more taxi than the buses. Okay, because the bus is not that comfortable, not that kind of luxury, right? So become richer, we take more taxi because taxi is normal good. We take less bus because bus is inferior good. Okay, they are inferior good. The last one is about your future price. For example, if we're talking about the buying stock or buying some investments, for example, in apartments. So expected price may change, that would really change the current demand. Think about this. If we found that, okay, the flat will become more expensive in the future or tomorrow, then I will buy it now or later. Should be like now. So I will buy earlier. Okay, so I will buy more. So I will try my demand for that is it will increase. How about the when the expected price decrease? Then I will buy later because later I can buy it cheaper. So now buy less. So the current demand increase. And lastly, we talk about the supply. Also, supplies have a related goods. It's a question that's two goods. We have to think about the relationship of them. So that is a competitive supply. What are they? They are, think about it, they are using the same resources. The French fries and the mashed potato, both of them are made by potato. So when we find that the price of the French fry become more expensive, then if you are the seller, you would like to sell it more because it's more profitable. However, I used the potato to make the French fries. Now I have less potato to make the mashed potato. So the supply of this decrease. How about the dry supply? We are not using the same ingredients. These products come from same ingredients. That means when we make a French fries, we don't use the skins. We just tear off the skin and use the potato. Then the skin is another thing, so I can fry it. I can use it for other dishes. So if the price of the French fry increase, I will make more French fry. Then I have more potato skin left. So the supply of potato skin increase. For the consequences, very simple. Because consequence for P and Q, price and quantity, is a must. Every time we have to mention about that. But the question is, where do we need to go further? So if go further, we have several things. We can go further about the total revenue. If we talk about total revenue, then we should draw the diagram, and then you can easily find out, put the plus or the minus on the diagram to show the change about the total revenue. If you find that you have plus only or minus only, then the total revenue have a we're quite sure about the change about the total revenue. For example, demand increase, then price and quantity will increase. So total revenue increase because both of the things is increased. But if the price increase, quantity decrease, they go to different direction. So total revenue is unknown. So in this case, we have to refer to the elasticity of demand. Okay, next chapter we will talk about that. So if that is another case, we mentioned about the excess demand over the excess supply. What is the changes? Sometimes it asks you whether the shortage or the surplus problem solved. Okay, it can be solved. Then in your diagram, the shortage or the surplus should be disappear. But sometimes it may be worsen or maybe become better. Then that means the surplus increase or decrease. Okay, but remember that still has shortage or surplus in that case. Okay, so you have to show it in your diagram.